Welcome back to the Tom Talks Training Podcast. My name's Tom Peto, and this is a Q&A episodes from questions from my subscribers on my fitness YouTube channel at Tom Peto Training, where I do follow along workouts. I've been a personal trainer for over 13 years. I run a physical gym with group sessions and private personal training. I'm a father of 2 kids and husband, trying to balance work, fitness and family. So if that's you or you're interested in those things, then this is the place to be. So let's kick it off with our first question. And this is from OU6584, and the question is, can I lose fat without losing muscle? And I thought this was a great question. It can be a confusing one, but I'm going to keep it nice and clear. Yes, you can lose fat without losing muscle, or you could even lose fat whilst gaining muscle, but this is mainly for beginners, for those coming off a break from training or those coming down from being a more obese weight. You also have to bear in mind, if you're trying to lose fat without losing muscle, you're going to want to have a small rather than a large calorie deficit, and you're going to need to maintain a high protein diet of around 1.8 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, or if you're in pounds, 0.7 to 1 pound per pound of body weight. That's your protein intake. But you have to remember, you have to account for that extra protein within your total calorie deficit. You also need to maintain your resistance training volume during this fat loss phase. So it is possible, but it can be very difficult if you're an experienced trainer who's been on a program for a long time to do both at the same time. So it's better for beginners, those coming off a break, or those who are obese. Next, let's look on. We've got at Desire Torres and a load of letters, and they've asked, I've got skinny legs and they want bigger legs so bad, but why is it hard to get it? Can it be a genetic cause from my mum who has skinny legs too? So you're right, genetics play a huge role in your ability and your base level of muscle mass. However, everyone's got the potential for some level of growth. I would say especially in your quads and in your glutes, I find that everybody seems to be able to grow those to some extent. However, I do find for myself and for lots of others, calf growth can be difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but if you've got genetically skinny calves, it's probably going to be that you're going to have maybe slightly bigger but still skinny calves. My theory on that is that we're always walking around on our calves every day, so we're almost detraining them back to type 1 more endurance fibers, whereas the type 2 fast twitch, more explosive fibers have more room for cross-sectional area growth, whereas your quads and glutes, although you do walk around on them, your calves get the predominant endurance load for that. So I think there's more potential for growth in your quads and glutes, and I would say your hamstrings, though, because of the fat layer on the back of your legs, that will show up less obvious than your quad and glute growth. Next, what sequence of weights should you do from low to high, etc. or otherwise? And this is from at Sanjay Sable 2006. I like this question because it's related to programming, and that's probably my passion. So I'd say there's 2 main options when looking at sequence of weights and sets. The main one would be an ascending pyramid. Now, there's lots of different options you could use, but the ascending pyramid is one of my favorites, and that's where you have your reps starting high and ascending to a lower rep range as the weight comes from light to high. For example, set 1, 12 reps, set 2, 10 reps, set 3, 8 reps, set 4, 6 reps. But then you would pyramid your weights up to match. So set 1, 12 reps, let's say at 50 kilogram bench press. Set 2 would be 10 reps at 60 kilos. 3 would be 65 kilos for 8 reps. And 4 would be 70 kilos for 6 reps. Obviously, they're just random kilo numbers I've brought out of the air. But you want to put your bigger weight jumps, so I've done a 10 kilo jump between the 12 and the 10, and your smaller weight jumps at the end where I only put a 5 kilo jump. So whilst you're warming up, you want the bigger kilo jumps. Now, the benefit of doing an ascending pyramid for your 4 sets is that a warm-up is built into the overall structure of your workout, so you probably don't have to do any extra workout sets. And all of them should be relatively close to failure because you're doing higher reps with the lighter weights, and when you're heavy, you can drop the reps. Now, the disadvantage is you don't get a very large training volume at those heavier weights, and you might be tired from your first sets, limiting the max weight you could lift on the heavier sets. So for a beginner that's still figuring out the coordination and perfecting the lifts, I use ascending pyramids. Now, as they get more experience, what I tend to do, I'm not sure what the name for this is, but I would just say you have a working weight and a working rep range that you're going to try and stick to. This could be put into a periodized plan. So for example, let's say today you're going to be working on sets of 8 reps, so 8 reps a set. Now you want to get up to your working weight for 8 reps. So for most people, that's going to be 75 to 80% of their 1 rep max. To keep the math simple, let's say your 1 rep max is a 100 kilo bench press. Then 75 to 80 kilos is going to be the weights you're going to be lifting within. Now I would do 2 low rep warm-up sets, and then you'd do 3 to 4 working sets of 8 reps. So your low reps might be just 2 sets of 5, and that's just to gradually build the weight up. And then your first working set is going to be in that range, 75 to 80% of 100 kilos. So hopefully that makes sense. 2 working sets, 3 working sets, all 8 reps a set at your working weight. The advantage is more of your sets are at that higher percentage of your 1 rep max. Next, okay, we've got at Gavin WKC, what is the most optimal way of mixing up your different programs for balanced strength training? I'm currently doing the dumbbell series, which is already challenging. Should I alternate or stick with it? So they're talking about my follow along channel at Tom Peto Training, where I've got all my follow along workouts. This is my Tom Talks training channel where I stick to more talking based videos. So I would say when you're picking a program, decide on the equipment you have available, and then you go onto my YouTube channel, go onto the playlists, or if you're a TPT Studio member, you can go onto the playlists on the video library of the TPT Studio, and then pick a program from the playlist. Now, the programs I have available are the Titan 30, which is more of a compilation of a mix of different workouts. My Lift Dumbbell series is a dumbbell 6-week series. The Dumbbell 45 series is 45-minute workouts, whilst the Lift series is 30-minute workouts. I've got my Lift 2 barbell series. Anyway, you'll see them all in there. I've got some calisthenics ones. So you pick a program that matches your equipment. I would do the whole series, making a note of what weights you're using for each workout and whether or not you could finish them. And then when you get to the end of the series, if you feel you could step up the volume, then maybe consider moving to a program with longer workouts. For example, if you finish the Lift series, move on to the Dumbbell 45 series because you can fit extra volume in. But if you found it that you're at your limit with how much you could cope with already, maybe repeat the series but slightly increase some of the weights used, giving you that progressive overload until you're feeling like you want a higher volume program, and then move onto one of the other series. Okay, next we've got at Daynapsum3577, who I think submitted some questions for the last Q&A as well. What's a day of eating look like for you? So I eat a little bit different every day, but I'll give you a vague idea of what I would typically do. Now, currently I'm doing intermittent fasting. Now, that's partly to get slightly leaner because I'm doing a lot of bouldering, a lot of calisthenics, so just being lighter is more beneficial. But mainly I'm seeing if it'll help out my inflammation. Now, intermittent fasting is where you have a fasted period of the day and you eat all of your day's calories within an 8-hour period. And ideally, it's the same 8-hour period each day. The idea is that you have a 16-hour fasted period to let your gut rest, replenish your good gut bacteria, which could help reduce inflammation and allow me to train more frequently, especially with my wrists and elbows. And for some people, just narrowing your window to 8 hours will reduce the total amount of calories that you consume within the day, helping with fat or weight loss. So I'm doing 11 a.m. till 7 p.m. and I don't eat outside of those hours. For breakfast, I'll usually have some kind of yogurt with a bit of protein shake in. I like Skia yogurt. It's an Icelandic yogurt with high protein, no sugar, low fat, just to get rid of some of the calories in it. And ideally I'd put some fresh berries in, but realistically we just don't go shopping often enough to always have fresh berries, so I might sprinkle some oats in to give me a few carbs. And then for lunch, I'm usually at work, and to cook something would just take a lot out of my day. So generally I'll get a meal deal just from any supermarket, and I'll try and pick some kind of chicken wrap or egg sandwich. One of the snack pots, you can usually get a packet of chicken or a 20-gram protein yogurt. And then as the drink, I quite like having kombucha, which is basically like a gut bacteria fizzy drink with no sugar, but I'll have coconut water if I'm feeling dehydrated as well. It's not the perfect lunch, but it's a lot better than I could choose, and it's very convenient and time efficient for my working day. Usually pre-dinner, I might have a little bit to eat, maybe just even some chicken breast and some fruit. Just grab whatever's in the fridge. I'm not going to make anything. And then for dinner, my wife very kindly cooks, and she makes a mix of things like curries. We do a lot of roasts. It's very simple because you just have potatoes, veg, a little bit of gravy, and then some kind of meat. And we do a lot of bolognese as well, maybe some fairly lean mince with rice or pasta. And then in the evening, I really try not to eat any cereal. Intermittent fasting's been great with that, and I might have a decaf coffee instead to satiate that desire to consume in the evening. All right, let's move on. What's a day in the life look like for you? Okay, so for me, I've recently, well, a couple of months ago, switched from doing full-time personal training, doing the typical morning block and evening block, and I'd usually manage the gym, do YouTube in the middle of the day, so it'd be a very long working day. But as the kids are getting older, I'd really like to be at home with them, and that's actually what inspired doing the YouTube channel, because I needed to replace that evening income with something to allow me to be at home with the kids. So I've stopped personal training in the evenings now, so I can have tea with the family. And instead, I'm personal training between 7 a.m. and usually 12 p.m. I'll usually go home, eat, and then I'll film a YouTube video in this home studio, and then do some editing or admin. And before we have tea, I need to get out of the house and kind of reset my mind from work mode back into family mode. And to do that, I'll usually go for a short walk up and down the canal where I live, or if I'm feeling really adventurous, I might even go for a slow run. And then if I can, I try and stop work after tea, but sometimes I will answer some emails or messages. Next question we've got, what is my workout weekly structure or split? Okay, so I've done lots of things throughout the years, but generally I follow a split, which is a movement plane split. So rather than thinking about individual muscles, I think about movement planes. Day one, I do horizontal push-pull. Day two, I do legs and abs. Day three, I'll do vertical push-pull. So that's like shoulder press and chin-ups. And day four, I'll tend to do deadlifts or some deadlift variation and some arms. So I've got 4 days. Now I'll just roll those 4 days any day of the week. And when I finish, I'll take rest days whenever I like. So if I train 5 days a week, it'd be day 1, 2, 3, 4, rest, and then I'd go back to day 1. But then next week I'd start on day 2. So I can train as little or as often as I like, depending on my YouTube filming schedule. And I'll just keep rotating that split routine. And I could just do 3 a week and I'd go horizontal push-pull, legs, abs, vertical push-pull. But next week, I'm going to start on workout 4, and it keeps my training nice and even, split throughout my body, keeping me in balance. Now, that all goes out the window when I'm filming a series. So currently I'm filming a new calisthenics series. And because I'm going to be filming 4 workouts a week, I will just do the series and I will do very little training outside of that, because that's good enough for me. It's good enough for what I'll put on YouTube. It's going to be good enough for me to train. So I do practice what I preach. I'll be fine following that for a month while I do that. I might throw a few bicep curls on top, but generally I'll just stick to the filming schedule. What PRs am I most proud of? So I've probably got 3 things I'm most proud of as far as physical achievements goes. One is a 140 kilo bench. That's about 308 pounds. Now, I only weighed about 79 kilos, 80 kilos when I've done that. I've done it 3 separate times. I've never managed to go over, and that's a pretty decent bench for my size. I'm absolutely shocking at deadlifts. I've got good deadlift technique, good flexibility, but poor strength. My second most proud one would be I can do, well, not currently, but I have done 27 chin-ups. I can always do 20, but once I did 27. I'm pretty proud of that, full range of motion. And the third one, not quite gym related, but I can still do a backflip. Now, I'm 34 and I can still do a backflip. I do one every now and again, and I'm curious, what age will I get to and still be able to do that? It's one of the proudest physical things I learned, but I did learn it at an early age. I'm glad I didn't have to learn it in my 30s, because I'm not sure I would have had the guts to do so. Next, any inspiring podcast shows or books? So I'm a big podcast guy, as in I'll listen to a lot. Some of my favorites are, my favorite is Theo Von. It's just a comedy podcast. I just use it to switch off from anything work and business related. But as far as like fitness goes, Modern Wisdom is a good personal development channel with a guy called Chris Williamson. There's one called the Keep Hammering Collective with a guy called Cameron Haynes. I won't listen to all those episodes because they can be a little bit hunter heavy, because he talks about hunting, which I'm not really interested in, but he talks about fitness as well, which I am, and I do like a lot of the guests he has. There's one called The Game Plan with Rob Lipset, and I just think he's a likable character, and he has some honest conversations. A lot of people on YouTube will be very cagey with how they speak and what they say and careful, and I just like the fact that he is very candid and says what he thinks. He's an Irish guy, and you gotta love the Irish sense of humor. So that's a fitness podcast that's just quite fun to listen to. And then a really quality one I think is actually First Things First. Now, if you follow Mike Thurston, you might think of him sometimes as just a fitness influencer that's not really thinking too much and it's all about the looks, but actually his podcast is pretty quality. He does have a little, I don't know if you call it red pill or black pill guests sometimes, but it doesn't mean that they're not saying good stuff. Those episodes that I'm not interested in or go a bit far, I just turn them off. You know, if you don't agree with something, you don't have to protest about it. You can just turn it off and just don't listen to it. So the episodes that are maybe a little manosphere heavy for me, I'll just turn them off. But then some of them are talking about men's mental health and development, which I really appreciate. So I'll keep what's good for me, get rid of what I don't enjoy or don't agree with. As far as shows go, that Cameron Haynes podcast also has a lift, run, shoot series where he takes the podcast guest and he lifts, he teaches them to shoot a bow, and he goes for a run with them up and down a hill. I really enjoy watching that as far as like a fitness show goes. I've been very inspired by that. I'd love to do my own version on this podcast where I get a guest in for a podcast and then we do some form of lift, run, shoot. Obviously, I don't shoot, so I'd have to think, what is it for me? I'm not quite sure. Maybe slacklining or bouldering, maybe just train with them. But I'd love to do like a double video for each guest, but we'll see how we get on with that. Another funny one, if you want to laugh, is there's a guy called Stavros Halkias. Now, he's a comedian, and his brother, I think, is a personal trainer, and they document his workouts getting fit, and it's just worth putting Stavros Halkias fitness, and you'll see he's got some episodes there. And it's pretty ridiculous, but it is funny fitness content. As far as books go, The Art of Resilience by Ross Edgley is great. If you don't know who Ross Edgley is, He's sort of like a sports scientist adventurer. He swam around the whole of Great Britain without coming to sea in something like 180, 200 days. And the book is talking partially a story about that, but it's also talking about Stoic philosophy for fitness and resilience. Another good one is A Survival Guide for Life by Bear Grylls. It sounds like it's a survival book, and I actually don't like his survival-based books. I think they're a bit boring. But this one is more about getting your priorities in life straight. It's got a lot of quotes from the Bible. It's got a lot of quotes from Winston Churchill. And it's just a really good read for like thinking what's really important to you in your life. And a really good business one is The 4-Hour Work Week. It's definitely an OG business book written by Tim Ferriss, maybe. I don't know who it's written by actually, but The 4-Hour Work Week, probably the most famous business book. However, I have to disclaim, I haven't actually finished The 4-Hour Work Week because I used to be a bit of a sucker for reading business books, and then I'd get inspired and then just read another business book. But I was reading more business books than I was taking action, and that's definitely a trap you can get into. A bit like watching loads of motivational podcasts, but then never actually going and doing anything. So with the 4-Hour Work Week, I tend to read a chapter and then go away and try and put into action the things I've learned in that chapter. So it's taken me years to get through the book because there's too much left to do. So I don't know how it ends in the book, but so far it's been very useful for me. Another question, current or future projects? So I am currently filming a calisthenics series, 4-week, 16 workout calisthenics, no equipment series for YouTube. And then I'm going to film straight away once that's finished, or even concurrently towards the end, a calisthenics and dumbbell series combined, maybe slightly longer workouts, and that'll be exclusively on my TPT Virtual Studio members area on my website. So there'll be one for YouTube, one for the members area, which will be coming out in September. And hopefully I can get the TPT Studio one out later in September as well. I'd like to do more live workouts. So I did my first live workout, which was an absolute train wreck, to be honest. But I'm trying to fail a little bit more. If I'm not failing, I'm probably not trying hard enough. Now, I thought I had everything sorted and I was well prepared. I'd done some test runs, but my Wi-Fi was just playing up on the day. And you can be as prepared as you like, but you cannot do a live workout without a solid Wi-Fi feed. So I'm going to literally change my Wi-Fi provider because that cannot happen for a live workout. It's too embarrassing and it's too painful to go through. I did finish the workout, but yeah, it was hard. It was tough to do. So I'm going to get a new Wi-Fi and then start doing regular, hopefully monthly lives. And then the other one is I want to develop the TPT Virtual Studio more. So there's already loads of content on there, but I'm going to start putting more and more content onto the video library there, and also more programs into the workout programs area, and then keep, as the community builds, investing more time into the community on there. So there's a private Facebook group where people can message me anytime, any fitness questions, and I'll answer them in there. And we hear about people's updates and what would they like to see more of in the TPT Studio. So going forwards, there will always be free content on YouTube, but I will shift to putting more time and attention into that and developing that further over the next coming months. Least favorite muscle to train is my abs. Now, I've actually got really strong abs. I'm not saying they're super defined, but I can do a lot of advanced ab exercises. And the reason I don't like training them is because you can't really see them unless you lean, and they're already like one of my strengths. So I'd probably be best spent training some of my weaker areas. So it's sort of pointless because they're already strong. And if I want them to look better, I just need to eat less calories to reveal them. They're already there. So it just seems sometimes a little bit pointless to do more training on them because they're already like fairly well built. And if I want them to look better, training them is not the way to do it. It's going to be putting a calorie deficit into my day. Favorite cheat meal? I don't really class anything as a cheat meal. I think it creates a negative association with food and relationship. Labeling foods as good and bad means that when times are stressful, you're just going to start rewarding yourself with what is considered bad food. So Any food is fine, just some foods are more calorie dense and more indulgent, so they need to be eaten in lower frequency and smaller portion sizes. So if I do want to eat like more indulgent food, I'll tend to do it at a restaurant where the portion sizes are predetermined, because I have no ability to control myself in the house. Other than that, I just don't buy those kind of foods in the house because I'll eat it all before I go to bed. So I have very little self-control, but I have enough self-control not to buy it. So I'll go out, I'll eat out fairly often, maybe once every couple of weeks. And I have no problem, no guilt associated with that. I'm not a competition bodybuilder, so just being lean enough to be athletic is good enough for me. Am I still playing American football? So no, I'm not, but I miss it every day. So I played 6.5 years of American football, actually post-university as an adult in the UK. I know it surprises some Americans to know we have a UK league, but we actually have a whole European league. There's loads of people playing it. You can't actually get paid to play it in England. It's just you're not allowed to pay players. It keeps the league a bit fair and stops all the teams just migrating towards London and leeching all the players. But in every other European country, they'll have a professional league. So a lot of UK players will play a few seasons abroad paid, but because it doesn't pay very well, they'll usually come back and get a normal job. So I played 3 years as a linebacker and then 3.5 years as a running back. And I stopped once my second child was born, mainly to reduce the amount of head impacts I was going to have and stop me developing things like dementia and early Parkinson's when I'm older. There's only so many hits in their head I think is sensible for you to have, and with the second child on the way, I was more aware of that. So I just made a sensible decision to stop, even though physically I was absolutely fine to carry on playing. Question from Noelle, who is an OG subscriber. She's been there since almost the start and she comments on almost every video, so I do recognize her handle. I believe she's from the US, and she asked, question on workout frequency, is 30 minutes a day enough? Should workouts be every day of the week? So I think 30 quality minutes a day is definitely enough if you're doing, let's say, 3 to 6 times a week, and also just staying active generally. 30 minutes can be pretty intense. You can fit a lot of sets into that time. So if your workouts are quality and you're doing a relatively high frequency of 3 to 5 a week, 3 to 6 a week, then 30 minutes a day can definitely be enough. It does depend what your goals are, but for most people, you're going to look in good shape if you're eating healthy and training that often. I do recommend taking 1 day off for ligament and tendon repair, because they tend to repair slightly slower than your muscles do. If you don't give them any time off, you can lead to tendonitis or even like a tear. Okay, we've got, are you into more strength or cardio? What do you do? I am way more into strength. However, I do dabble in cardio every now and again. I have done quite a few triathlons, but I'll tend not to do much cardio at all, specific training, unless I've booked a specific event. So every now and again in the summer, I'll book an Olympic distance triathlon and I'll do a 6 to 12 week block of actual cardio training, doing cycle, swimming, running. But generally in my week, I cycle to work and back, which isn't far, but it is every day. And then I'll go on a very slow run or walk in the evening. But to be honest, that's not even for cardio. That's more just to clear my head and for mental health. So not a lot of cardio, but I am quite active just getting to and from work. At the Kid 40 asked, I notice you wear wraps and do things with on your fists a lot. Both of mine are pretty bad from years of competition. Any other wrist maintenance advice? So yeah, this is a big thing for me that I have to work around. Is playing American football, I dislocated my elbow. Now, your elbow is not a ball and socket joint, so if you dislocate it, you're in trouble really. The bones sort of split going backwards, and it stayed dislocated for hours. They tried twice to put it back in, couldn't do it, and then late in the night, some bigger doctor came in and managed to get it back into place. So I have recurring tendonitis, and I'm more prone to it because of that in my elbow. So that's why I wear the elbow sleeves. And when I was younger, I used to do a lot of hand balancing. And being young, I never used to do any wrist conditioning or warm-ups. I used to just go straight into that. I'd be doing jumps off benches, landing back on my hands. I did a lot of free running. So my wrists have got a lot of chronic wear and tear from that. So you'll see I'll do things on my knuckles and wear elbow sleeves. And as long as I do that, I can actually do a lot of training with no problem at all. But I do have to be careful because they're both prone to inflammation. That's partly why I'm doing intermittent fasting at the moment, to see if I can reduce my inflammation without taking any medication. Not sure if it'll work, but worst case scenario is I get a bit leaner. Now, as far as advice on wrist maintenance, I do have some good tips. One of them is to use a bucket, fill it with rice, and you do wrist circles, maybe 20 one way, 20 back the other way, back and forth, and doing all angles until your forearms get tired. I find that's better than doing like dumbbell curls or dumbbell extensions if you've got wrist problems. Now, if that sounds like too much effort or too messy, you can get something called a power ball, which has basically got like a gyroscope in it. And that is a small movement, but I find that that warms up my wrist better and helps me keep them strong and prevent injury better than a lot of conventional exercises. Now, there's a guy called Eugene Tao, who's a fitness, Tao maybe, who's a fitness influencer. And if you put Eugene Tao forearm or wrist training, he's got a really good video summarizing that and a few exercises you can do with a rice bucket and also with a bar, doing some other movements like this and back and forth. Just watch the video, Google his name. Okay, we're on to our final one now. Do I recommend training every day, even if some days are just light exercise and stretching? So one thing to think about is, what is training? Is all movement training? Is me cycling to work and back training? You know, I have to do that almost every day. So I'd say yes, you can do some form of exercise every day. But as far as resistance training goes, that's where your muscles are under a higher amount of stress, maybe kettlebells, dumbbells, calisthenics. I would say you should have 1 to 2 days off a week from resistance training, as I said before, to allow the tendons and ligaments to repair. But that doesn't mean you can't do anything on those 1 to 2 days. You could definitely do some low impact stretching, you could do some foam rolling, or you could do some cardio. Maybe not HIIT cardio if you've already hit it hard in the week with the resistance training. So maybe some zone 2 cardio. That just means slightly lower heart rate cardio. So yes, you could do something every day, but I don't recommend resistance training every day. So thanks for this. I'd love to do more solo episodes. It's a lot easier for me. I try to book guests in, but it can be challenging. So we'll do another one. I'll put another Q&A out there in a couple of weeks' time. And let me know in the comments below what kind of content you'd like to see. Let me know if you've got any questions for the next Q&A that you'd like me to answer, and I'll see you in the next one.